The moment Isabella, my son's bride, leaned in and whispered, "You're not family, Julie." Stay out of our spotlight, I felt my heart crack like old porcelain. I was standing at the edge of the ballroom, clutching the $10 million check I'd written for their future, and her words sliced through me sharper than any knife. The lights of the chandeliers sparkled above, reflecting off the crystal flutes of champagne, but all I could see was her smug smile as she turned back to the crowd, basking in the glow of my son Daniel's arm around her. I wanted to scream, to tell everyone how I'd built that fortune with my bare hands, how I'd sacrificed everything for him. But I didn't. I stood there, frozen, the check burning in my hand like a betrayal I hadn't seen coming. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Julie, and this is the story of how my son's wedding became the day I took back my power. I was 62, widowed for a decade, and the mother of a son I'd raised alone after my husband Robert passed. Robert and I had started with nothing, just a tiny diner in a dusty corner of town. I worked 16-hour days, flipping burgers, balancing books, smiling through exhaustion while Robert charmed the customers. Together, we turned that diner into a chain, then a franchise, and by the time he died, it was worth $15 million. I sold it 5 years ago, banking a fortune I swore would secure Daniel's future. He was my everything-me reason to keep going after Robert's heart attack stole him from us. Daniel was 25 then, ambitious, with his father's charm and my stubborn streak. I thought he'd carry our legacy forward, but then came Isabella. Daniel met her 3 years ago at a charity gala I'd dragged him to. She was 30, all sharp cheekbones and sharper ambition with a laugh that turned heads. I liked her at first, seemed driven like me, but there was something in her eyes, a glint of calculation I didn't trust. Margaret, my best friend since high school, warned me early on. "Julie, that girl's playing a long game," Shed said over coffee, her brows furrowed. "She's not here for love, she's here for the win." I brushed it off. Daniel was happy, and I wanted him to have what Robert and I had: a partnership, a family. So I welcomed Isabella, opened my home, even paid for their lavish engagement party. The wedding planning revealed cracks. Isabella's mother, Lorraine, a snobbish woman with a penchant for name-dropping, took over every detail. "Oh, Julie, you wouldn't understand high society," Shed say, waving me off when I offered to help. Her husband, George, just nodded along, quiet and complicit. Isabella insisted on a $500,000 wedding at a vineyard estate, and I didn't blink. I wrote the checks, thinking it was for Daniel. But the guest list grew to 300, half of them Isabella's friends, like her gossipy sidekick Chloe, who smirked at me like I was the hired help. My sister Beatrice, always the wise one, pulled me aside one day. "Julie, you're funding their ego, not their love," she said, her voice soft but firm. I ignored her too. I wanted to believe in Daniel's fairy tale. The rehearsal dinner was my first real warning. It arrived in a simple navy dress, carrying a gift of pearl necklace Robert had given me on our 10th anniversary. I wanted Isabella to wear it at the wedding, a piece of our family's history. But when I handed it to her, she glanced at it, then at Lorraine, who snorted. "Oh, Julie, pearls are so dated," Isabella said, handing it back like it was a thrift store trinket. Daniel stood there, saying nothing, his eyes on his phone. I swallowed the hurt, smiled, and sat through the dinner as Lorraine and Chloe dominated the conversation, praising Isabella's vision for the wedding. I felt like a ghost in my own son's life. The wedding day was worse. I'd spent the morning alone in my hotel room, staring at the $10 million check. It was my gift to Thema Trust Fund to start their life, to build something like Robert and I had. I'd worked with Mr. Hargrove, our family lawyer, to set it up, ensuring it was ironclad. I imagined Daniel's face when I handed it to him, the pride in his eyes. But as I walked into the vineyard's ballroom, dressed in the emerald gown I'd chosen to honor Robert's favorite color, Isabella's words stopped me cold. "You're not family." Shed pulled me aside near the gift table, her voice low but venomous. "This is our day, Julie. Don't embarrass Daniel by hovering. Maybe sit in the back somewhere." I stood there, stunned, as she walked away, her white gown trailing like a taunt. Daniel was across the room, laughing with his childhood friend Alex, oblivious. Ms. Finch, the wedding planner, caught my eye and offered a sympathetic smile, but it didn't help. The room spun. I'd given everything me money, my heart, my trust, and I was being erased. I looked down at the check in my purse, my hands trembling. Something inside me shifted, a quiet rage I hadn't felt since the early days of scraping by in that diner. I wasn't just a mother. I was Julie, the woman who'd built an empire from nothing. And I wasn't done yet. I stood frozen by the gift table, the weight of Isabella's words, "You're not family," burning in my chest. The ballroom buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, but I felt like I was underwater, every sound muffled, every smile a blur. My emerald gown, chosen to honor Robert, suddenly felt like a costume, mocking my place in this moment. I glanced at Daniel across the room, his tuxedo crisp, his smile wide as he chatted with Alex. He hadn't seen Isabella's cruelty, hadn't noticed me standing here, unraveling. My fingers brushed the $10 million check in my purse, and for the first time, I wondered if it was a mistake. I forced myself to move, slipping toward the back of the room as Isabella had demanded. The vineyard's stone walls and ivy-draped arches were beautiful, but they felt like a cage. I found a seat near the kitchen doors, out of sight, where the waitstaff rushed by with trays of canapes. Lorraine, Isabella's mother, caught my eye from the head table, her lips curling into a smug nod, as if my retreat was her victory. Chloe, Isabella's best friend, whispered something to her, and they both laughed, their eyes darting toward me. I clutched my purse tighter, the check inside it a reminder of everything I'd given and everything they thought they could take. I thought back to the years after Robert's death. Daniel was in college then, grieving but determined. I'd poured every ounce of my energy into keeping him grounded, paying for his business degree, supporting his dreams of starting a tech company. When he met Isabella, I thought she'd be his partner, someone to share his ambition. But now, watching her glide through the room like a queen, I saw the truth. She wasn't building a life with Daniel, she was building an empire on my back. And Daniel, he was letting her. The ceremony started, and I sat in my corner, invisible. Isabella walked down the aisle, radiant in her designer gown. While Daniel beamed at her, I waited for him to look for me, to seek out his mother in the crowd, but his eyes stayed on her. The officiant's words about love and family felt like a mockery. I remembered the nights I'd stayed up with Daniel, teaching him to balance a checkbook, telling him stories of how Robert and I had fought for every penny. "We're a team, Danny," I'd say. Always. But now, as he slipped a ring on Isabella's finger, I wasn't part of his team anymore. After the vows, the guests moved to the reception, and I stayed in my seat, unsure if I belonged there either. Margaret, my best friend, found me. She'd flown in from Chicago, her silver hair pulled back, her eyes sharp with concern. "Julie, what are you doing back here?" she asked, sliding into the chair beside me. I told her what Isabella said, my voice barely a whisper. Margaret's face hardened. "That girl's trouble, and Daniel's too blind to see it. You don't deserve this, Julie. You built their castle, and they're locking you out." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I thought this check would be my legacy for them," I said, pulling it out of my purse. The ink gleamed under the dim light, my signature bold and final. Margaret's eyes widened. $10 million, Julie, that's not a gift, it's a surrender. You're giving them your power." Her words hit me like a slap. She was right. I'd spent years giving me money, my time, my heart, and what had it got me? A seat by the kitchen and a daughter-in-law who saw me as a nuisance. The reception was in full swing now, music pulsing through the vineyard. Isabella and Daniel took their first dance, the crowd cheering. I watched Lorraine and George clap, their faces smug with pride. Chloe was snapping photos, probably for some curated social media post about the perfect day. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Beatrice, my older sister, her face lined with wisdom and a hint of mischief. "Julie, you're stronger than this," she said. "You didn't build a fortune by letting people walk over you. Don't start now." I looked at the check again, my mind racing. I thought of Robert, how he'd always said, "Money's just a tool, Julie. It's what you do with it that matters." I'd planned to give this money to secure Daniel's future, but Isabella's words had changed everything. If I wasn't family, then what was I to them? A bank? A stepping stone? I stood up, my legs shaky but my resolve hardening. I wasn't going to fade into the background. Not today. I slipped out of the ballroom, past Ms. Finch, who was directing waiters with military precision. She gave me a curious glance but didn't stop me. Outside, the vineyard air was cool, the stars bright above the rolling hills. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mr. Hargrove, our family lawyer. "Julie, it's late," he answered, his voice groggy. "Everything okay?" No, I said, my voice steady for the first time that night. I need you to do something for me. That trust fund check, I want it voided. And I need to know exactly what's in Robert's will. Every detail. There was a pause, then a low chuckle. I was wondering when you'd call, he said. Meet me tomorrow morning. You're not going to believe what Robert left for you. I hung up, my heart pounding. What had Robert done? And what was I about to do? I didn't know yet, but one thing was clear. Isabella had made a mistake. She thought I was just a grieving widow, a pushover mother. She was about to learn who I really was. As I drove away from the vineyard that night, the $10 million check still in my purse, but now feeling like a weapon rather than a gift, I couldn't shake Mr. Hargrove's words. You're not going to believe what Robert left for you. The highway blurred through my tears, the stars mocking my isolation. I'd skipped the rest of the reception, leaving without a word to Daniel or anyone else. Let them celebrate without meth, not family intruder. My phone buzzed with texts from Margaret. Where are you? Everyone's asking. And from Beatrice. Proud of you for walking out, call me. But nothing from Daniel. That silence hurt more than Isabella's venom. I got home to my quiet house on the hill, the one Robert and I had bought after our first big franchise sale. It was filled with memorous photos of Daniel as a boy, Robert's old toolbox in the garage, the kitchen where I'd planned 1,000 family meals. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat at the island and stared at the check. Voiding it felt like betraying Daniel, but keeping it felt like betraying myself. I thought of the early days, Robert and me, newlyweds, scraping by. He'd say, Julie, you're the brains, I'm just the charm. We'd laugh through the hard times, dreaming of giving our child everything. And I had until Isabella turned it into nothing. Sleep came in fits, haunted by dreams of the wedding. Isabella's sneer, Daniel's averted eyes, Lorraine's triumphant laugh. I woke at dawn, my resolve steelier. I dressed in a sharp pantsuit, the kind I wore for business deals, and drove to Mr. Hargrove's office downtown. The city was waking up, coffee shops buzzing, but I felt detached, like I was in a movie about someone else's life. Mr. Hargrove greeted me with a warm hue'd been Robert's friend before he was our lawyer. Julie, you look like hell, but there's fire in your eyes, he said, leading me to his conference room. Papers were spread out, Robert's will prominent among them. All right, let's get to it, he said, sliding a folder toward me. You know the basics. Robert left the bulk to you and Daniel. But there's a clause you never dug in Tobe cause you trusted everything would be fine. I leaned forward, heart racing. He pointed to a section buried in legalese. Robert added this after his diagnosis. It says the inheritance-ire share of the fortune, including any gifts to Daniel, can be revoked if there's evidence of undue influence or familial alienation. I blinked, processing. Undue influence, like Isabella. Exactly, Mr. Hargrove nodded. Robert was sharp till the end. He saw Daniel's ambition but worried about opportunists. This clause lets you, as executor, pull the plug on any transfers if you deem the recipient unfit due to manipulation. And that $10 million check, it's not just a gift, it's tied to the estate. You can cancel it any time before it's deposited. I sat back, stunned. Robert had protected me even from beyond the grave. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked. He shrugged. You were grieving Julie and happy for Daniel, but now, with what you described on the phone, this is your out. We spent the next hour going over detail show to void the check, freeze assets, even reclaim wedding expenses if I wanted. It felt empowering but heartbreaking. Daniel wasn't the villain, he was the pawn, yet his silence made him complicit. As I left, my phone finally rang. It was Daniel. Mom, where did you go last night? Isabella's furious you missed the cake cutting. No apology, no concern, just accusation. Daniel, I said, my voice calm but edged. Your wife told me I wasn't family, to stay out of the spotlight, so I did. There was a pause, then his defensive tone. She didn't mean it like that. She stressed. Come on, Mom, don't ruin our day. Ruin their day. I'd funded it. Daniel, I've given you everything. But if I'm not family, then maybe my money isn't either. I hung up before he could respond, my hands shaking. I drove to Margaret's hotel. She was staying another day. She opened the door in her robe, pulling me into a hug. Tell me everything, she said. Over coffee, I spilled about the will, the clause, my call with Daniel. Her eyes lit up. Julie, this is karma waiting to happen, but are you sure he's your son? I nodded, tears welling. I love him, Margaret, but love isn't blind. Isabella's poisoned him, and if I don't act, she'll destroy us all. Beatrice called next, her voice booming through the speaker. Julie, I heard from Margaret. Good on you. Remember Aunt Clara? She let her kids walk all over her and died broke and alone. Don't be Clara. We laughed, but it was bittersweet. Beatrice had always been my rock, the humorous one who cut through the drama. What now? She asked. Confront them. I thought of Isabella's parents, Lorraine and George, how they'd enabled her entitlement, and Chloe spreading gossip. Even Miss Finch had seen the humiliation maybe. She'd be a witness, if needed. By afternoon, texts flooded in. From Alex, Daniel's childhood friend, Julie, what happened? You vanished. Daniel's acting weird. I replied briefly, ask him about his wife's words. Then from Isabella herself, Julie, Daniel said you overreacted. Come to brunch tomorrow, we can talk. No apology, just command. I ignored it. Instead, I called Mr. Hargrove back. Do it, I said. Void the check and prepare papers to invoke the clause. As the sun set, I sat in my garden, Robert's favorite spot, feeling the weight lift slightly. But the pain lingered betrayal from my own blood. Little did I know, the real storm was brewing. Daniel and Isabella were about to face consequences they never imagined, and I was just getting started. The next morning, I woke to pounding on my front door. I peered through the peephole and saw Daniel standing there, his hair disheveled, his tux from the wedding rumpled like he'd slept in it. Isabella hovered behind him, her makeup smudged, arms crossed tightly. I took a deep breath, smoothing my robe, and opened the door. Mom, Daniel said, his voice a mix of anger and desperation. What the hell? You voided the check. Isabella's bank Caledit's worthless now. His eyes searched mine, pleading, but there was an edge, like I was the one who'd betrayed him. I stepped aside, letting them in. The living room felt smaller with their presence, the air thick with tension. Isabella swept past me without a word, perching on the edge of the sofa like it was beneath her. Julie, this is ridiculous, she said, her tone clipped. We had plans for that money, a house, investments. You can't just take it back because of a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Her words from the wedding echoed in my head. You're not family. I sat across from them, my hands folded in my lap, channeling the calm I'd learned in boardrooms years ago. Daniel, I started, ignoring Isabella for a moment. Do you remember what your father and I taught you? Hard work, loyalty, family first. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Isabella. Of course, Mom, but Isabella didn't mean I cut him off. She meant every word. She told me to stay out of the spotlight, that I wasn't family, and you stood by, silent. His face flushed, but Isabella jumped in. It was our wedding, Julie. Emotions were high. You're overreacting, turning this into some drama. Her eyes narrowed. That calculating glint I'd seen before now sharpened into defiance. I leaned forward, my voice steady. Overreacting. I funded your life for years, your apartment, your cars, this wedding, and in return I'm dismissed like an old receipt. Daniel rubbed his temples. Mom, please, we need that money. Isabella's right, we have plans. Plans? I thought of Robert's will, the clause Mr. Hargrove had explained. Undue influence. It fit Isabella like a glove. What plans? I asked. Isabella smirked. A new startup. Daniel's idea, but with my connections. Her connections meaning her parents' circle. Lorraine and George's old money friends who looked down on my self-made wealth. The argument escalated. Daniel paced, begging. Dad would want this for us. Hearing Robert's name twisted the knife. Your father protected us from people like her, I said softly. Isabella shot up. People like me, successful, ambitious, unlike you scraping by in a diner. Her venom spilled out, confirming everything. Daniel tried to calm her, but she turned on him. Tell her, Daniel, tell her how you've complained about her clinging, how she's holding you back. He froze, guilt flashing across his face. So that's what he'd said behind my back. My heart shattered anew, but I held firm. They left in a huff, Isabella slamming the door, Daniel muttering apologies that felt hollow. I collapsed into a chair, tears streaming. Margaret called immediate list, been my lifeline. Julie, you did the right thing, she said. He's under her spell, but he'll see. Beatrice texted. Stay strong, sis. Remember, blood's thicker than greed. Even Alex, Daniel's old friend, reached out. Heard about the fight. Daniel's torn up, but Isabella's pushing him. What can I do? I appreciated the support, but the loneliness gnawed at me. That night, I wandered the house, touching Robert's photos. Did I fail him? I whispered to his smiling face. The next day brought more fallout. Lorraine called, her voice dripping condescension. Julie, dear, you've upset everyone. George and I think you should reconsider for family harmony. Family, the hypocrisy burned. Lorraine, I replied coolly, your daughter made it clear I'm not family, so why should my money be? She sputtered, then hung up. Chloe, Isabella's gossipy friend, must have spread the word. Me phone buzzed with messages from wedding guests, some sympathetic, others prying. Ms. Finch, the planner, even emailed, Mrs. Julie, I saw what happened. If you need a statement, I'm here. Her kindness surprised me. Perhaps not everyone was blind. I met with Mr. Hargrove again, this time to formalize invoking the clause. We'll freeze Daniel's access to the estate portions, he explained. Any assets tied to Yowstock's properties revert control. It included the vineyard where they'd wed. I'd quietly owned a stake through investments. And the wedding costs? I asked. He nodded. Reimbursable, send the bills. It felt petty but necessary. As I signed the papers, a weight lifted, replaced by sorrow. This wasn't revengeate, was self-preservation. Daniel showed up alone that evening, looking defeated. Mom, Isabella's furious. She's talking lawyers. I poured us tea. Sitting at the kitchen table like old times. Daniel, tell me the truth. Has she been pushing you away from me? He stared into his cup. She says you're too involved, that we need space, but I miss you, Mom. His vulnerability cracked my armor. We talked for hours about Robert, our struggles, how Isabella's ambition mirrored mine but twisted with entitlement. I love her, he admitted, but I see now she's changing me. Tears fell as he hugged me. Fix this, please. But Isabella wasn't done. She texted me later. You'll regret this, old woman. Daniel's mine now. Her threat ignited something fierce. I called Margaret and Beatrice for a strategy session. Time to expose her, Beatrice said with her trademark humor. Let's dig into her connections. With their help, I started piecing together Isabella's past whispers from Alex about her failed ventures, debts she'd hidden. The emotional toll was heavy, nights of doubt, wondering if I'd lose Daniel forever. But resilience bloomed. I was Julie, widow, mother, empire builder, and I was fighting back. Little did they know, the twist Robert left would change everything. As the days blurred into tension, I prepared for the confrontation that would shatter their illusions. The vineyard's grand hall was packed, the same chandeliers sparkling as they had on the wedding day, but now it felt like a courtroom. Daniel and Isabella's 1-month anniversary party was in full swing, a lavish affair funded by Lorraine and George to reclaim their narrative after my public revelations. I stood at the entrance, dressed in a sleek black dress, Margaret and Beatrice flanking me like loyal generals. Mr. Hargrove was there too, holding the folder that would seal their fate. The crowd buzzed friends, colleagues, even some wedding guests who'd whispered support after my stand. Isabella hadn't expected me to show up, let alone with an agenda. I spotted her across the room, radiant in a gold gown, laughing with Chloe as if nothing had happened. Daniel stood beside her, his smile forced, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. Guilt flickered across his face, but I wasn't here for apologies anymore. I was here for justice. Lorraine noticed me first, her face souring as she nudged George, who looked away. Ms. Finch, the wedding planner, gave me a discreet nod from the corner shed, provided key details about Isabella's behavior during the wedding, including overheard conversations with Chloe about securing the bag. Alex, Daniel's friend, was nearby, his presence a quiet reassurance. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, the crowd parting as whispers spread. Isabella's laugh faltered when she saw me. Julie, what are you doing here? She hissed, striding over. Daniel followed, his voice low. Mom, please, not tonight. I held up a hand, my voice calm but loud enough for the room to hear. This won't take long. I have something to share about family, loyalty, and consequences. I nodded to Mr. Hargrove, who stepped forward with the folder. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice commanding. Mrs. Julie, as executor of Robert's estate, has invoked a clause in his will due to evidence of undue influence and familial alienation. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Isabella's face paled, her eyes darting to Daniel. Lorraine pushed forward, indignant. This is outrageous. You can't. Mr. Hargrove cut her off. It's legal, Mrs. Lorraine. The $10 million trust fund has been voided. Daniel's inheritance is frozen pending investigation. And the vineyard? He paused, letting the silence build. Julie owns a controlling stake. This event is on her property. The room erupted in murmurs. Isabella's jaw dropped and Chloe looked like she wanted to vanish. Daniel stared at me, stunned. Mom, you own this place, I nodded. Your father invested here years ago. I kept it quiet, but it's mine. And I'm evicting this party. I turned to Isabella. You said I wasn't family. So why should my money, my property, support you? Her eyes filled with tears-crocodile tears. I was sure, but the crowd's mood had shifted. Whispers turned to accusations. She humiliated her own mother-in-law, I heard someone say. Then came the final blow. Mr. Hargrove handed me a document, one I'd discovered in Robert's private files days ago, hidden in a safe only I knew about. This, I said, holding it up, is a letter from Robert written before he died. He suspected someone might try to manipulate Daniel. I read aloud, Julie, if our boy strays, remind him who we are. You're the heart of this family. Protect it. My voice broke, tears streaming as I looked at Daniel. I tried to protect you. But you let her push me out. Daniel's face crumpled. He stepped toward me, away from Isabella. Mom, I am so sorry. I was blind. Isabella grabbed his arm, desperate. Daniel, don't listen to her. She's stealing your future. But he shook her off, his voice raw. No, Isabella, you stole mine. The crowd gasped again. Lorraine tried to intervene, but George, silent until now, spoke up. Enough, Lorraine. We enabled this. His admission stunned her into silence. I turned to the guests. This isn't about revenge, it's about truth. I built a fortune for my son, but I won't let it destroy him or me. I nodded to Ms. Finch, who signaled security. This event is over. Please leave. As the crowd dispersed, some clapping softly, others whispering in shock, Isabella screamed, Y'all pay for this, Julie. But her voice was drowned out by the shuffle of feet. Chloe slunk away, avoiding my gaze. Lorraine stood frozen, humiliated. Daniel stayed, tears in his eyes. Can we talk, Mom? Just us. I nodded, my heart aching but hopeful. Later at home, Daniel and I sat in the garden, Robert's favorite place. He apologized, raw and honest, admitting how Isabella's ambition had clouded his judgment. I thought I needed her to succeed, he said. But I need you. We cried together, rebuilding a bridge I thought was burned. I didn't restore the $10 million yet, but I gave him something better. A chance to earn his own way, like Robert and I had. Isabella faced lawsuits from vendors I'd redirected, her connections abandoning her as her debts surfaced. Lorraine and George retreated, their influence shattered. As the sun rose, I felt lighter. I'd lost a fortune in one sense, but gained my son back. Robert's letter lay on the table, a reminder of his love, his foresight. I whispered to the sky, we did it, Robert. My reflection in the window showed a woman who'd fought and won not with money, but with heart. Thanks for listening. If this story hit you in the heart, don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.